I spent over $10,000 on a round-the-world business class ticket. I was denied boarding. They canceled my booking twice, and that's just the beginning. This is my horrendous experience with the Star Alliance round-the-world ticket. Here's the itinerary that I booked with the Round the World tool on staralliance.com. The booking was easy, it worked well, but that positive experience is about to change very soon. The plan was to fly from Zurich, Switzerland to Toronto, Canada on November 24th, 2022. Then I would continue to Tokyo via Vancouver on November 29, and then back home to Switzerland, Tokyo to Zurich on December 7th. After booking, I had everything confirmed in business class ready to go. This ticket cost me 10,560.7 Swiss francs, which is approximately $11,300 US. I paid for this myself as I was going on a self-funded round-the-world comedy tour in late 2022. One of the benefits of the round-the-world ticket is the flexibility. You are supposed to be able to change your destinations and dates. I specifically booked the journey from Canada to Japan on ANA, All Nippon Airways, because I really liked their product. After booking, I saw that there was another connection on ANA that has the new updated business class seats. They call it the Room, and I really wanted to experience that seat. That connection was from Toronto via Chicago instead of via Vancouver. So I want to change my flight. The Star Alliance Round the World tool does not allow changes to be made online, so I have to call them. The bigger problems that occurred during this trip are coming later, but here is one of the smaller problems. Who do I call? The fare rules state that for changes en route, you should contact the operating airline. Now, my trip hasn't yet started, but the change would occur en route, so let's try to call ANA. They are operating the main flight from Canada to Japan. Remember that the first flight on my trip from Zurich to Toronto is scheduled for November 24th. On November 22nd in the evening, I called ANA and they don't answer. I'm just put in an endless queue. I try again around midnight on November 22nd and a third time on November 23rd in the morning. Now, they are supposed to be open during all the times that I try to call them. So let's try something else. I will call Swiss instead. I am departing from Switzerland and Swiss is operating one of the legs on this itinerary. The Swiss contact center is able to find my booking in the system, but they can't help me. They tell me to call Air Canada instead. Why? Because Air Canada is operating the leg that I want to change. I call Air Canada, and they also find my booking in the system. And they tell me to call Lufthansa, because this apparently is a Lufthansa booking. Now we're on November 23rd around midday. I called the Lufthansa service center and they also find my booking in the system, but they tell me they can't help me either. Instead, I should call the Round the World booking center and they give me the number. I call the number. I only get a voicemail that says that they are not accepting calls at this time and they refer to an email address instead. In fact, why don't we try to call them right now to see what the response is.
Welcome to Book and Fly service. At the moment, our service is not available by telephone. We will gladly take care of your requests if you send us your inquiry by email. Our email address is as follows: staralliance.bookandfly@. Many thanks for your understanding. Goodbye.
Normally, I wouldn't be opposed to doing this via email, but my first flight is departing in 24 hours. I want to sort this out over the phone. So I call back the Lufthansa service center, I explain my situation, and I get to talk to a very friendly and helpful agent called Victoria. She's able to make the change exactly like I wanted, so that I'm flying out of Toronto via Chicago to Tokyo on ANA in business class and in the seat that I want. At 2 p.m., I get an email from Lufthansa confirming all these details, all confirmed, all in business class. At this point, I make the mistake of thinking that everything is sorted, but this is where my round-the-world nightmare begins. We're still on November 23rd. I have to leave the house around 8 a.m. to make it on time to Zurich Airport. At 11:19 p.m., I get an email from Lufthansa. Please call back your Lufthansa service center. Important notice. We were unable to reach you telephonically, please contact us urgently regarding your booking. You can reach us on this 800 number. Alternatively, you will find our worldwide Lufthansa contacts here. First of all, they did not try to call me. I have no missed calls at this time. Secondly, it's a bit stressful to have to deal with this just as I should be going to bed for my flight tomorrow morning. So what has actually changed? Well, my journey has been downgraded to economy. Both the flight from Toronto to Chicago and, more critically, the flight from Chicago to Tokyo Narita. Now, that first flight to Chicago I don't really care about, but I booked this itinerary specifically to be able to fly that new, beautiful business class seat on ANA. Now, the email says specifically to call the Lufthansa Service Center, and I think you know where this is about to go. The first agent I speak to, they say that I should call the Round the World booking office instead. I try to call the Round the World office, I get the same voicemail again, and I call back to the Lufthansa Service Center. This second agent connects me to the frequent traveler hotline, which I believe is the hotline for the silver status holders in Miles & More. That number is closed, so the call just terminates. At this point, I'm starting to panic. I need to sort this out before my flight tomorrow morning. So I call back a third time to the Lufthansa Service Center, and I insist on them helping me. And this third agent that I speak to, she is of course able to find my booking, but she's not able to change it. But she is able to offer an alternative, namely that we revert the entire itinerary to what I originally booked. At this point, I'm fine with that, so she changes it back to the original connection via Vancouver instead. She says that she's going to send me an email confirmation. That email confirmation never arrives, but I am able to log into my Miles & More account and see the full itinerary there. It has been reverted to the original state. So this is all sorted. No, it's about to get a lot worse. The next morning, I take the train to Zurich Airport, and I arrive 3 hours before departure. I check in with Air Canada, who are operating the flight from Zurich to Toronto. The check-in agent is unable to check me in, and she tells me that my ticket is blocked. Why is it blocked? Well, I log in to Miles & More on my phone, and I see that the whole flight from Toronto to Vancouver is missing. Now, I have a very much incomplete round-the-world ticket, and the first leg of this trip is supposed to start in less than 3 hours. The Air Canada check-in agent is absolutely lovely. She takes it upon herself to sort this out for me. It ends up taking 30 minutes. She's talking to various different companies. At some point, she's holding 2 different phones as she's trying to talk to the right ticket office. At the end, she tells me that the Air Canada ticket office was able to restore my flight from Toronto to Vancouver, and she is now able to check me in properly. I ask her to print out my updated itinerary. She's not able to do that at the check-in desk, but I am able to log into Miles & More and once again see that my flight from Toronto to Vancouver has been restored. With my Air Canada boarding pass in hand, I'm able to go through security, enjoy the excellent Swiss Senator Lounge, but as you may have guessed, this disaster is not over. I make it over to Toronto, and I had a great flight on Air Canada. I have a separate review about that. Check out the link in the description. Now it's November 27th. I'm in Toronto, and I log in once again to my Miles & More account to check on the status of my flight. Once again, I discover that the flight from Toronto to Vancouver is missing. Just like last time, nobody has informed me of this. Now I call Air Canada. I'm put in an endless queue, and the interactive voice response system says that everything you can do on the phone, you can also do online, which is obviously not true when it comes to round-the-world tickets. This time, at least, there is more than 24 hours to my next departure. It's more like 36 hours. So I actually do take the opportunity to email that address that the Lufthansa Round-the-World Ticket Center gave me. And this is where the first positive development in this story happens. They email me back within 90 minutes, and they say that they have reissued the ticket so that these kinds of problems should not happen in the future. At the same time that I receive the confirmation from email, I also receive an email from Air Canada saying that the waitlist has been cleared. We are pleased to let you know that you are confirmed on flight Alpha Charlie 103. Now, this is the first thing that I'm hearing about being on a wait list. And why would I be on a wait list anyway? I think the type of ticket that I have should have one of the highest priorities for available seats. It's a full fare, paid in cash, round-the-world ticket in business class. And in addition, I'm also a Star Alliance Gold status holder. Now, I could expect to be on a wait list for upgrades and for award tickets, but not for this ticket type. So far in this video, I have focused on those problems that had the biggest negative impact on my trip. It is extremely stressful to have to deal with these random changes initiated by the company. This is not what I want to be doing on this comedy tour. Instead, I want to enjoy my shows and engage my audience. But in addition, there are also some minor impacts. One of them is that whenever the ticket was changed, I always lost my seat reservation. I wanted to record a beautiful airline review during this whole trip, and I really wanted to have a window seat. And I lost those window seats every time something changed. The other problem here is that the Lufthansa service center kept telling me that they can't help me, whereas in fact they were able to make all these changes as soon as I insisted. If this would have happened to a passenger who was perhaps less assertive or somebody who didn't travel as much, this would have been complete misery for them. Overall, it was extremely unclear who I should talk to at the various points in the journey. So for comment, I reached out to all three concerned. Before publishing this video, I contacted Lufthansa, ANA, and Air Canada. I sent them a draft of this video and I asked them the following questions. On the journey as booked after the change from Toronto to Chicago to Narita, why was I downgraded to economy after having a confirmed business class booking? After we reverted to the initial booking, why was my reservation on the leg between Toronto and Vancouver cancelled twice? And why did nobody contact me when this happened? Why did I have to find this out at check-in in Zurich and randomly by logging into Miles & More on my phone en route? And these questions are specifically to Lufthansa. Why do you tell your agents to refer me to this round-the-world phone number, which is in fact not currently in use? I tried to tell each of the agents that it was actually not working, but they insisted that I call that number. And the second question to Lufthansa is that your service center agents can in fact handle changes to this round-the-world ticket. Why do you keep telling me that they cannot? And the final and most important question to all three airlines, what will you do to make sure that other passengers do not have to go through these same issues in the future? When I get a reply from the airlines, I will insert it here. We are now 10 weeks later, the hair is longer, and we got some replies from the airlines. I'm going to put the entire reply on the screen, and then I'm going to read out some highlights from each email. First up, we have the Lufthansa Round the World Ticket Office. I sent them my email on December 15, and they replied already on December 16. They begin by pointing out that round the world tickets are complex products, which makes sense. They also point out that they cannot answer the phone because of COVID-19, and that makes no sense whatsoever. Phones still work, pandemic or not. They direct me to raise my complaint with Lufthansa directly, and they give me the postal address and an email address as well. I send my email to them the same day on December 16. On December 20, they reply back and say, no, you actually can't use this email after all. You have to fill in a form. I fill in the form on December 21st. They acknowledge the receipt of my complaint, but they haven't gotten back to me yet, and now it's late February. Next up, we have ANA, and they actually do end up providing a little bit of interesting data. I send the contact form on December 16, and they send me a reply on January 19. ANA, of course, starts with the usual pleasantries, but then they have this interesting data point about the change via Chicago. They say that my ticket was booked in Zulu class, and when they tried to put me on that flight via Chicago, They did have availability in Charlie class, but not in Zulu class. That's why apparently after a few hours, when they discovered that they tried to book me with no Zulu class availability, they actually booked me into economy Bravo class instead. This, of course, is not a great customer experience, but at least it explains one thing. I had said previously in this video that I had a full fare business class ticket. In fact, this is not correct. I had a Zulu class. Typically, Charlie class and Delta class are higher than Zulu class when it comes to paid business class tickets. Next up, we have Air Canada. I sent my questions to them on December 16 as well, and I had to wait all the way until February 3rd to get a reply. They say something really interesting and nonsensical about those 2 Air Canada flights that were cancelled. First, they say that the first cancellation was due to my change to the connection via Chicago, which is technically correct but not relevant. And then the second cancellation was apparently when that itinerary was changed back. But that actually makes no sense whatsoever, because those cancellations appeared only after I did have my itinerary reverted back to the original. The cancellation happened after I got the verbal confirmation of the change back to the original itinerary and before the first check-in. And then the second cancellation that is relevant here happened while I was in Canada. What they're writing here in the email is not relevant and not helpful. So what shall we make of all of this? Well, it's 0 points to Canada because their email was not helpful at all. I'm going to award some half points to ANA because they actually did explain something interesting about the booking classes. And for Lufthansa, I award them negative points. We are now on February 27th. They still haven't replied to that feedback. And as always, they instructed me to go to one place that wasn't the right place, then to another place that wasn't the right place. So negative points for Lufthansa for bouncing me around as always. Bad job, Lufthansa. I have been a Star Alliance Gold customer for almost a decade. I like Star Alliance, but they have to fix their broken round-the-world ticketing system so that the nightmare that I had to go through does not happen to any other passenger. The ticketing issues aside, the flights themselves were actually really nice. Click or tap the screen right here to watch my reviews of each of the individual flights that I took on this trip. Thank you for watching Markus Travels.